Hello, welcome to Faithless Love.
The house sounded different after the funeral. As if the walls remembered footsteps that would never echo again. As if the air itself was heavy with words that had never been spoken. Anna closed the door and leaned her back against the cold wood. The hallway was dark, except for a thin stripe of yellow light from the street lamp outside, falling across the rug. The smell lingered, stale and heavy, a mixture of dust, old books, and something faintly familiar, almost like tobacco. Strange, she thought, how smells outlast people. She walked into the living room. Everything stood just as it always had, the armchair where he used to read in the evenings, the stack of magazines on the side table, the blanket draped carelessly over the armrest. Even his glasses still lay on the shelf, slightly askew, as if he had taken them off in a hurry. Anna lowered herself onto the sofa. The silence hit harder than the funeral music that had played earlier that day. The only sound was the clock on the wall, marking time far too loudly. Each tick landed inside her like a hammer. She closed her eyes. Faces rose in her memory, relatives, neighbors, the endless condolences, words that all sounded the same, empty, rehearsed. No one had really spoken to her. No one could. What she felt wasn't only grief. It was something stranger, like standing before a massive locked door, and the only key had been buried with him. Anna rose and stepped into the bedroom. The air was different here, still carrying traces of his cologne, and something warmer, more intimate. The bed was neatly made, she hadn't been able to bring herself to sleep in it since he was gone. On the nightstand rested a book with a bookmark still tucked inside. She ran her finger across the cover, and a faint puff of dust rose into the air. She opened a drawer, searching for photo albums, mementos, something to hold on to. Instead, her hand found a wooden box, scratched and worn. It was heavier than she expected. Anna pulled it out and set it on the bed. The wood smelled faintly of ink and time. She lifted the lid. Inside was a bundle of envelopes tied together with a thin ribbon. She loosened the knot. The ribbon snapped softly, like the breaking of a delicate string. Anna picked up the top envelope. The paper was yellowed, the edges brittle and fragile. Her heart tightened. Her fingertips traced the letters of her own name. The handwriting was his. Firm, deliberate, but with a certain urgency, as if he had been racing against time. Anna sat on the edge of the bed. The room felt unbearably quiet. Only the wind outside scratched the glass with the branches of the trees. She unfolded the paper. Just a few lines. The ink had blurred slightly with age. Anna. I write to you because I was never good with words. I've always been weak when it came to speaking, but what I fear most is that one day it will be too late. She froze. Her hand trembled, the paper crackling in her grip. Too late. The words landed like a knife. Because this moment, this was already too late. Anna lowered her head into her hands and sat motionless for a long time. The clock kept ticking. The house breathed with emptiness. Anna stared at the stack of envelopes for a long time. They lay before her like foreign hearts, long since stilled, yet still warm in their silence. Her hands wouldn't move. She was afraid to open them, to read, to discover. Afraid in a way that felt heavier than standing by his coffin. Because here, on fragile paper, she might find things she had never known, about him, about herself, about them. One of the letters was dated years ago. The handwriting was steady, deliberate, but rushed in places, as if he had been scribbling in secret, afraid she might walk into the room at any moment. Anna unfolded the sheet. The ink had faded slightly, and the paper carried the faint, musty scent of old ink bottles and time itself. Anna, I don't know how to begin. With you, I feel happy, and at the same time unbearably alone. It's a paradox I can't escape. When you laugh, everything else disappears. But when we fall into silence, when that silence stretches longer than a simple pause in conversation, I feel a chasm opening between us. I wish I could tell you this, but I can't. You'd only look at me with those calm eyes of yours and say, "Don't be silly." And I would retreat again. Anna read the lines again and again, a strange tide rising in her chest. She couldn't remember him ever speaking to her like this. Her husband, always calm, reliable, solid as a wall. But here, in these words, was someone else. Vulnerable. Exposed. Too honest. The curtains stirred with a hidden draft, as if the house itself had begun to breathe. The clock still ticked, softer now, drowned out by the thudding of her own heartbeat. She picked up the next letter. The date was more recent. The handwriting wavered, just slightly. Anna, am writing again, and again I can't bring myself to say these things aloud. Sometimes I feel you're only with me out of habit. You tell me you're tired from work, that you need more quiet. But am I not also quiet? Could I not be the peace you long for? More and more I wonder if I'm no longer what you need. I'm terrified to face that thought, so I hide it here instead. I dread the day I hear it from your lips. The paper trembled in Anna's hands. These words struck harder than the toll of funeral bells. She stood and paced the room. The floorboards groaned beneath her steps. She thought about opening a window, letting the night air in, but she couldn't. It felt as though the house itself held her in place, forcing her to keep reading. The third letter was the shortest. The page had been folded hastily, the handwriting uneven, almost desperate. Anna. I love you. But it feels like you haven't noticed for a long time. Sometimes I wonder, has my love turned invisible? Like an old piece of furniture you no longer see. If one day I were gone, would you feel it? Or would you only breathe easier? Anna shut her eyes. Tears spilled down her cheeks, but she didn't wipe them away. The words split her open from within. She remembered evenings when he had tried to start a conversation and she had only nodded, distracted, her mind on work, on her phone, on tomorrow's breakfast. She remembered how she had bristled at his careful attention, dismissing it as smothering. How many times had she waved him off with "let's talk later"? Later never came. Anna clutched the letters to her chest. The paper was cold, yet it pulsed as if alive. Somewhere in the house, a door creaked. The wind, perhaps. But she flinched. For a moment, she was sure he was still here, invisible, near. In the corner, the shadow of the wardrobe stretched, tall and human-shaped. She blinked. And the room was empty again. The letters rested on her lap. And inside her, an echoing hollowness grew. A sense that this was only the beginning. Anna sat surrounded by letters. With every page she turned the room seemed to shrink. The air grew heavier, dense with things left unsaid and a long, aching sorrow. She reached for the next envelope. The paper felt slightly damp, as if it had kept someone's breath inside it. The date was only a year before his death. Anna, today I watched you sleep. You slept peacefully, but in your face I did not recognize the woman I fell in love with years ago. Or maybe I failed to recognize myself beside you. More and more I think we have lost the road back to each other. I want to ask you, if you met me now, on this day, at this age, would you choose me again? Anna froze. The words lodged in her chest. She saw again that morning, him sitting at the edge of the bed, watching her. Shed snapped awake and, irritated, asked, "What?" He only smiled and said, "Nothing," then shuffled to the kitchen to make coffee. Now she knew what he had been thinking in that quiet moment. That nothing had been louder than any confession. A car rolled by outside, its headlights sweeping across the walls like someone else's life reminding the house it continued. Inside, everything remained the same, oppressive and still. She opened another letter. The handwriting was more nervous this time, the sentences stumbled into one another. Anna, sometimes I fear there is someone else. Not because you come home late, not because you hide your phone. But because day by day you drift further from me. I feel it in every gesture, in every glance that slips away. I am not jealous of a person. I am jealous of the emptiness growing between us. She inhaled sharply. Her throat had gone dry. Had he really thought she was unfaithful? But the truth was simpler, and yet more devastating, she had been tired. she had withdrawn. She had not meant betrayal, only distance. Yet for him it had been everything. She closed her eyes and pictured him alone at the kitchen table that night, lighting a lamp, taking out a sheet of paper, writing with a trembling hand. Hiding those pages as if they were contraband. Meanwhile she was in the next room, absorbed by her phone, a show on television, anything but him. A weight pressed down on her as if the air itself became syrupy. Her fingers slid to the next envelope. Anna, I don't blame you. I blame myself. I don't know how to speak. I always believed that caring, working, being present were enough. I built the house, brought home the money, fixed the leaky faucet, bought the medicine. But maybe what you needed were words, not hands. And I kept silent. Now that silence has grown into a wall. I pound on it and hear no answer. The paper trembled in her hands. She remembered the dripping faucet he fixed that spring. She hadn't even said thank you that day, only a distracted nod before she went to bed. One of hundreds of small moments where he offered care and she took it for granted. Tears fell down her cheeks. She let out a sob that disappeared into the hush of the room. Anna pressed the letters to her chest as though she might hold him close through paper. The pages were cold, and the tighter she clutched them, the wider the hollow inside felt. She looked at the bundle, still many envelopes left. Each felt like a knife tucked into the fabric of time, waiting to be pulled free. She understood then, the worst was yet to come. He had not written these letters expecting her to read them while he was alive. He had written them knowing, with a kind of tragic certainty, that she would one day open them, too late. Anna hesitated for a long time before reaching for the next envelope. Her hands ached from the tension, as if the paper weighed not grams but pounds. One more letter, she thought, and her heart might not survive it. But the silence urged her on. The house breathed heavily, like an old man before sleep. The clock kept ticking, and every tick sounded like Reed. She opened the envelope. The paper was thicker than the rest. The handwriting, uneven, weary, fading in places, as though written late at night under a dim lamp. Anna. If you are reading this, it means I never found the courage to say these things while alive. It means I chose silence again. I was afraid of losing you even more than I was already losing you. And maybe it was me who pushed you away first, hiding behind work, behind duties, behind everything but my own heart. Anna clutched the paper as though she could hold on to his voice. So many times I imagined sitting across from you and saying, Anna, I feel lonely next to you. But each time you were tired, distracted, not in the mood. And I put it off. Until tomorrow. Until next week. Until next year. And then the years were gone. And I had never said it. Her vision blurred with tears. The words swam, but she could not stop reading. You may ask why I wrote it all. Maybe to remind myself I could still feel. Maybe so that one day you would know, not through arguments, not through bitterness, but simply know, that I loved you every minute. Even in silence. Even when I feared I was losing you. Anna gasped. The room felt smaller, the air thicker. Somewhere in the distance, a dog howled. She kept reading, her whole body trembling. I don't know if he'll still be here when you read this. Maybe not. Maybe this letter is the only way I can speak the truth. But know this, I loved you. And if I am guilty of anything, it is that I never showed that love in a way you could see. Forgive me. His name signed at the bottom, jagged and uneven. The letter slid onto her lap as she buried her face in her hands. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs. Tears ran through her fingers, falling onto the paper, blurring the ink. She tried to imagine, what if he had said all this while alive? Would there have been a fight? A conversation? An embrace? Would everything have turned out differently? But now the truth was like a door that had opened in the wall, only to slam shut forever. The paper rustled under her palms, soaking in her tears. She whispered. Why did you stay silent? Why? But there was no answer. The clock went on marking empty time. The wind rattled the window, as though someone was trying to get in. The house was full of her voice, and his absence. She lifted her eyes. A whole stack of letters still lay on the bed. She had read only a few. Many more waited. But her strength was gone. And she understood, they all would say the same. About love hidden behind silence. About fear that proved stronger than words. About the wall that grew between them, now unbreakable. Anna gathered the letters against her chest and lay down on the bed. The sheets still carried his scent. The paper was cold, yet it felt like the only warmth left. She closed her eyes. And for the first time in years, she did not wait for tomorrow. Because tomorrow would bring nothing new. Only the past. Only regret. Only letters written by him, letters she had read too late. The story of Anna and her husband's letters is a story about silence, silence louder than any words. It's about love that lives beside us and still goes unseen. And about the confessions we keep putting off for later, forgetting that sometimes later never comes. And now, I want to ask you. Have you ever faced this kind of silence? That invisible wall between you and someone you love? Tell me, what's more frightening? To hear the painful truth? Or to never hear it at all? Share your story in the comments. Maybe your experience will inspire the next episode. Because every story is more than just words, it's a mirror in which we see ourselves.